Hello guys, welcome again to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about my personal opinion about the ongoing conflict between Russia and the West, which is actually nothing more than a proxy war. If you're not familiar with the term, proxy war actually means that they are actually fighting someone else other than the most obvious countries that are involved in this conflict, which is Russia and Ukraine. But the war is actually being fought not between Russia and Ukraine, but is between the Western countries, the Western powers, including many of the NATO countries. Probably all of them are involved in this, and more more than this is obvious that they are using Ukraine as people say cannon fodder to be able to upset Russia, which is a provocation that has been building up since the since the collapse of the Soviet Union. So this has been going for a little bit more than 30 years. If you can believe that someone is capable of planning something 30 years in the future, this is what they have been doing for all this time, trying to surround Russia, with NATO countries, including all or most of the countries that were part of the Warsaw Pact, which was part of the Soviet Union and Soviet-friendly countries. So this is intention is obvious. It's obvious that they wanted to provoke a reaction from Russia, and they succeeded. Finally, they succeeded. They got their wishes granted, and it is very obvious that they were only so happy to impose the financial sanctions and all the sanctions that they were already planned to impose on Russia for the invasion of Ukraine. So this is basically something that most people will, which is not very familiar with the politics of this region, will start to think that this only started, no, I don't know, maybe 1 month ago or 2 months ago. In any way, yes, recently, and it is actually longer than that. It is going back to a long time, more than just 2 months. So these sanctions, financial sanctions, have been imposed, and they are trying to enforce them in even other countries that don't agree with the sanctions. So they are trying to do this, and they try to get the cooperation of other big powers. Fortunately, not every country is supporting these sanctions, but regardless, they got what they wanted, which was hurt the Russian economy, but they are also hurting the economy of the European Union and all the countries that are involved in the European Union. And this really doesn't matter for the objective was to upset the economy of Russia and provoke regime change, which is the main objective that they want to get with these sanctions. But there's been proof that sanctions don't work, and they just hurt the people of the countries, causing unnecessary suffering in the standard of living on the people that are living under the sanctions. And what is being surprising for me is all this recent propaganda that is being perpetrated by Western countries, and even journalists are, jumping on board this train that just propagates all the information, even sometimes fake information, fake news, fake videos, fake photos, Not all of it is fake, of course, but it just makes it very hard to keep pace with what is really happening. So my entire opinion is this is that is very suspicious that even complete media channels or complete ways to get news that are opposing to the official point of view that this is an unprovoked war from the part of Russia is just not the case. There are many outlets of information that are just being censored, and there is even in some countries there's even laws that prohibit expressing your opinion if it is opposed to the official narrative. Such countries as Czech Republic, where is I think it's Czech Republic. Maybe I may be wrong, or maybe it was one of the Baltic states. I will get this information and I will put a link to this information on the comment section so you can check it out on your own. But basically, it says that it was illegal to say anything against the popular or the official opinion. And yes, recently has been known that NATO has been sending troops, to the borders of the allied countries for many months, more than it is officially recognized, and they are already sending some naval strike groups, and they have been, secretly and not so secretly massing troops and equipment, war equipment, weapons in these countries. And the official narrative is that NATO is looking to protect the countries that form part of the pact, but that doesn't really make it believable. I think they are there for a reason. They are trying to do further provocations. They are calling for very reckless proposals, such as the no-fly zone they want to impose in Ukraine, which basically calls for the shooting of every flying craft on the airspace of Ukraine, which will involve direct confrontation with Russia. And who will impose this on NATO countries? So they will, in order to do this, they need to use their own planes or artillery or some air surface to air missiles. So these systems are definitively going to provoke some damage, and Russia is not going to respond to this in a friendly way. They already warned against this, but basically this is all planned out to provoke Russia and to have an excuse to get further involvement in the conflict. They are looking for excuses, and the excuses have different factors, such as the story of the biological labs in Ukraine, which it has been denied as truthful, but there are even some officials from the US administration that have acknowledged that this is the case. And now they are calling for an excuse in the base of a chemical weapons attack. So they basically set up the background for further involvement into the war. They say if there is an attack using chemical weapons or biological weapons, we will get involved, meaning NATO will get involved. So this is basically saying, inviting the opposition in Ukraine to do these kind of attacks themselves, as they have done in the past in other countries, setting up what is called false flag events. If you don't know what is a false flag, I will post some of this information and you can look it up in the internet on your own. And then there's the Nazi factor that a lot of people don't know about, but this is historically accurate that the Nazis in Ukraine have been historically involved in many acts of aggression against Russia. So during the World War II, the Nazis that were coming, invading, they had a sympathetic welcome from the people that were living in what is now the Lvov region of Ukraine. So the Lvov region is a part that was not originally part of Ukraine. Historically, was not part of the Ukraine. Only later became part of Ukraine. So they are not really Ukrainians. Most Ukrainians are confused about their own identity. They don't know that what they consider the heart of Ukraine is not so. Um, the Lvov region is not the heart of Ukraine. The Kiev region is the heart of Ukraine, and that's Russian in origin. Is the origin of all Slavic countries. So only after some wars, the Lvov region was appended. It was an appendage to the current Ukraine and included many different peoples. So there are some Romanian origin people, some Hungarian people, and the people of the Lvov region, which are the people that speak the so-called Ukrainian language. So these people were, when Nazi Germany came invading, they were fighting along Ukraine, along the Nazi Germany against Russia, and they were known for being reckless and really very cruel in the way they were treating everyone. They participated, in the killing of minorities, ethnic minorities during the World War II, and against Ukrainians and against Russians themselves. They were uh, very, very cruel. They were known for being cruel during this occupation, and now they are again involved in the country, and they were invited by the meddling of United States and other countries in the affairs of Ukraine. So they were um, basically funding all these opposition groups for a long time, trying to get someone opposed to the Russian friendly government that was part of Ukraine for many years. And that's when they got their wishes after the Maidan Revolution. There are so many factors in the Maidan Revolution that were incited by the Nazis or the ultra right, and there are even documented information about how they were provoking the manifestations to become more violent. Initially, they were peaceful, people just saying what they wanted, and the government even had some settlement with them, and they decided to anyway depose the government and started getting involved in the military. The most famous component of the Nazis in Ukraine's military, is called the Azov Battalion. But there were others, many others. I was visiting Ukraine before the war started in 2014, and this was not nothing. It was completely non-existent. And after the Maidan Revolution, they became involved in every area of the military. They became even involved in politics, and they have been threatening politicians to do their bidding. There is also some stories that they basically threaten the President Zelensky with being killed if he even concedes anything to Russian, during the negotiations. So Zelensky is hand-tied. He cannot do anything. He cannot make any decisions, and he doesn't have any power really at this moment. He's probably just hiding someplace. He doesn't know if someone sitting next to him is a Nazi waiting for the call to basically execute him. So this is a really sad situation for the Ukraine and for the Ukrainian peoples, which are definitively not guilty of anything. They are just the victims in all this. So what about this is has been building up for a long time. They have been arming Ukraine for many years, starting since 2014, and up to the point where after the war was officially declared, they continue to send all kinds of weapons to Ukraine. They have been even promising to send more weapons and even some airplanes, which haven't been delivered, but because already Russia said that they are not going to tolerate this. But they still continue to try, and this is a really one-sided way to do it. In any official conflict, armed conflict, if someone is arming your opponent, this is actually considered already like a declaration of war. But Russia has decided, to let it go and just warn against doing more of that, and just say that any weapon shipment will be um, considered hostile and will be destroyed. And a lot of people don't think that this is as serious as it is, but this has been being concocted or being prepared for a long time. And then you have the war in the Donbass region, which was provoked as a consequence of the Maidan Revolution, so-called Maidan Revolution. And there has been many abuses from the part of the Ukrainian army. They have been shelling, bombarding, the people living in these regions. It's been documented that many thousands of people in this region have died as a consequence of these shellings, and the Minsk agreements were never implemented, and there was no real compromise or real intentions from the Ukrainian government or even from the signatories of the Minsk agreements to really have like a ceasefire. So what we have here is just a series of provocations, and it's all lining up. And what is interesting to me, but in a very negative way, is that this is definitively not going to end well. I Anyone with a little bit of intelligence will see, okay, so who benefits from this? What is the end game? If you're telling a country like Russia who has nuclear weapons, okay, we're going to attack you, we're going to put weapons in your border, and we're going to get involved in an open war with you, what they will expect Russia to do. They they know that this is not going to end like in a peaceful way. They're not going to have Russia surrender and say, okay, yes, you have 20 countries against one, so yeah, I give up. So this is going to become a nuclear war, and then people like normal people will think, okay, this is absolutely nonsense. Nobody wants a nuclear war. Well, yes, there are certain groups that actually want a nuclear war, but you wouldn't guess who they are. So there is a group of Satanists that are part of the Western governments, and many of them are behind the scenes. Some of them are openly displaying their Satanist agenda, but what they really want is to destroy the world. This is really very sad, because for anyone who is normal and normal human being will not understand what they really want. They want to see the world burn, and they don't care if all humanity dies, because they already have some sort of plan for this. They already have some probably bunkers where they're going to hide out for the next 50 or 100 years. They have everything fully stocked, and they will go there underground when everyone else is dying or suffering in the surface. So this is my opinion, and it's very serious. But I have real reasons and documentation of why I think this is going to happen. Because even Biden says recently that they want the Putin to be removed from power. So This is basically declaration of war. It's a declaration of war against a nuclear power which has everything to lose. You know, they have everything to lose if they go against them all the countries of NATO. So they will probably see this as an existential threat. And I'm not blaming Russia, and I'm not saying that they are doing the right thing or not. They probably will do what they consider necessary to survive. But this is exactly what these groups want to accomplish. They don't want to accomplish peace. They already don't want to accomplish military victory. They know this is impossible. Um, Despite the opinion of many that they think that Russia is losing the war, Russia is not losing the war, and they don't care if Russia wins the war because their end goal is higher than this. You know, I wish I am wrong about this, but this is really worrisome, and let's see how everything pans out, and I will try to record more about my opinion on this subject. And if you have any comments, please write them, in the comment sections below. I hope this will have like a good ending because definitively I'm one person that I want to see humanity thrive and not end in a painful way. So thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you soon.